Programmer sir, can we start now?
I think we are all set and we can start right now.
Okay, thank you, sir. Good evening, dear participants, distinguished speaker, respected senior sir, colleagues, salam, abad, adab, namaskar. ICT Research Lab generally organizes the seminars for government ICT officials to make the knowledge-based, research-based ICT communities for research, innovation, and development. I am Biplab Chandra Debnath, Assistant Programmer, Department of ICT and Session Moderator. First of all, I congratulate and welcome all of you in today's virtual event. The event title is Exploring the Tools and Techniques in Digital Forensics towards Fighting Cyber Attacks. Dear participants and scholars, now I would like to request our today's session chair, MD Harun Rashid, Programmer Sir, Department of ICT Division, for his welcome speech. Sir.
Thank you, Biplab Chandra. Today is a webinar on exploring the tools and techniques in digital forensics towards fighting cyber attacks. Honorable Keynote Speaker, Mr. Mahbub Mishu, PhD, Assistant Professor, Acadia University, Canada. Moderator, Mr. Biplab Chandra Debnath, Assistant Programmer, Department of ICT. Honorable members and distinguished presents. Good evening to all. At first, I would like to thanks to ICT Research Lab for inviting me as session chair. I'm really happy and greatly honored for that. The Department of ICT is working to ensure accessing the benefits of ICT to the grassroots level, provision of infrastructure security, maintenance, implementation, the delivery of e-service in remote areas of the country through the expansion of quality control and the efficiency of the computer professionals, the use of information technology to establish good governance and knowledge-based economy, the best use of information technology for ensuring infrastructure development, skilled human resource, employment creation, and establishment of e-service as well as good governance. I am appreciating the ICT Research Lab, an online-based research group, for such outstanding initiatives to strengthen government ICT officials' technical knowledge by working on innovation, research, and development. A strong collaboration among the government officials of different ministries, divisions, and departments to make sustainable digital Bangladesh, knowledge-based society, and fourth industrial revolution. ICT Research Lab formulated 4 research teams on machine learning, cybersecurity, SDN, IoT, blockchain, and computer vision. They are organizing different research talks, webinars to encourage young ICT government officials for advanced and frontier technology. Today's webinar is very important as nowadays cybersecurity is a big concern for the whole world. I hope today we will learn a lot about digital forensics, how and what to do after the cybersecurity incidents occurs. I would like to give a big hand to Mr. Mahbub Mishu, PhD, Assistant Professor, Acadia University, Canada, for his valuable time. And I wish this webinar will be a successful one. Thank you all. Jai Bangla.
Thank you, sir. Dear participants, our today's distinguished keynote speaker is Mahbub Mishu, PhD. He is an assistant professor of computer science at the Acadia University, Canada. His teaching includes data structures and algorithm, programming methodology, and artificial intelligence. Previously, he was an instructor of Information Security at Southern Alberta Institute of Technology in Canada. At SAIT, he taught information security related courses such as computer forensics, operating system exploitation, and payment card industry encryption. In his lab, he showed several tools, computer software such as Wireshark, Security Onion, Autopsy, FTK Imager, SPLUNK, Kibana, NetFlow, Volatility, etc. He also taught security policies such as ISO 27K, NIST, COBIT. He obtained his Doctor of Philosophy from Bournemouth University, and research area was modeling and designing of a smart, intelligent bed system that identifies the risks of bed sores, pressure, ulcer formation in the human body, and prevents it in real-time based patients' physiological and body support surface characteristics. He also worked as a researcher and associate lecturer at Southampton Solent University and holds certificate in teaching qualification with distinction from University of Ulster, UK. He has published more than 10 international conference and journal articles, ACM, IEEE. He is an assistant professor and head of computer science at American International University, Bangladesh. Now I would like to invite to research talk our distinguished keynote speaker, Mahbub Mishu, PhD, Acadia University, Canada. It's over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm really glad to be here today with all of you. I'm sure my talk will help you a lot to understand the current trends in digital forensics to fight cybersecurity or cyber attacks worldwide, because we all know that it's a bit of hectic situation for all of us when it comes to computer crime, when a computer is actually involved in a crime. Now, what we are going to talk about today is an area of cybersecurity. Very often we get mixed up with cybersecurity and digital forensics. Now, I'll explain during my talk what is actually cybersecurity and why we need digital forensics so much. So I would like to start with sharing my screens. I hope you have given me the permission to share my screen, so I'll try. So just let me know when you can see my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, we can see.
Okay, thank you very much. Screen. Okay, so the topic for our discussion today is titled as Exploring the Tools and Techniques in Digital Forensics Towards Fighting the Cyber Attacks. Okay. So this is our topic, and a brief introduction about myself. I'm sure already Biplab Debnath has introduced me, but here's a little bit of my qualification and my previous experiences. And I've given my LinkedIn profile link as well and my Acadia email address. So if you'd like to contact me regarding any research or any further exploring of the cybersecurity field, or any information technology related field, you are free to send me an email. I'd really appreciate it. So this talk is basically divided into 3 parts. We are going to talk about some basic definition of computer attacks, cybersecurity, digital forensic, etc. Then in the second part of our presentation, we will be looking at some tools and techniques that we can actually use in our day-to-day life to fight the cyber attacks. And in the last part of the talk, we will talk about the reporting or preparing the documentation. Okay, so that is also an important part. So let me start with giving a simple idea of what is digital forensics. Now, digital forensics is actually a branch of forensic science that focuses on the recovery and investigation of material found in digital evidence related to cybercrime. The term digital forensics actually introduced in computer forensics long ago, and since then the area has been expanded a lot. Okay, it is actually the techniques where we explore how we acquire data how we analyze them, and how we actually prepare our reports. So in our next slide, what you will see is the difference between cybersecurity and digital forensics. Now, when I say cybersecurity, the area is vast. It's a big area, okay? And digital forensics actually a part of this cybersecurity. Now, when a hacker actually hacks your computer, he steals information, he steals valuable data. Now, as a forensic investigator, our role starts when the crime actually takes place. So we go to the scene after the crime has taken place. Okay, so we try to collect all the evidence, we analyze what type of attack it was, what type of information was stolen, and what can be actually done to prevent that attack. What could have been done actually, because the attack has already taken place at some place, and you have been called to that place as an investigator. So your work starts when you actually step into the crime scene, cyber crime scene. So as you can see, it says that the cybersecurity focuses on prevention, while digital forensic is reactive. Okay, so as a cybersecurity analyst, someone's job would be to protect or prevent the system from getting hacked. But as a forensic investigator, someone's role would be how this crime was happened, identify that, what type of items were stolen, make a nice report and submit to the law enforcement agencies. Okay, so there is a basic difference. So very often we get mixed up when we talk about cybersecurity and digital forensic. Those are actually two different areas. Okay, so that was an idea of explaining the cybersecurity and digital forensics. So we are talking about forensics today. Okay, so there are numerous ways when a computer can actually get involved in a crime. So for example, you can see here, I have noted three points here. So an intrusion investigation. Okay, so this can be when you arrive at the scene, you see that, yes, the hacker actually left the scene, leaving behind the computer and other devices. So computer as an instrument in a crime. So it can be a target or it can be an instrument. So when I say target of a crime, this actually means your computer is hacked by somebody else. So you are the victim here. And when it become involved such as an instrument, that means a hacker was using that device to cause some serious damages to other people. Okay. And also the computer which holds evidence of a traditional crime. Okay. So maybe an example would be emails between two people and they're actually planning to launch a crime. So that can also be used as an evidence. Okay. Now, these are the quite a few known, familiar types of attack we get in cybersecurity, and the cybersecurity analysts always try to prevent these attacks. Now, recently, what we have seen that the ransomware has become very, very popular among the hackers. So what is ransomware? Ransomware is something that when you open your computer, you try to access your files, okay, and the system is completely locked. When I say locked, this means actually it is hacked. So you cannot access your own computer because somebody has already taken the control of it, all the files and data you have inside. And maybe you will get a message that, okay, you have to pay money in some form of digital form like Bitcoin or something, and then we will release your data. Otherwise, they're going to threat you like they will publish this data. If it's a sensitive information, just imagine if it contains confidential military data and the system got hacked. and someone actually asks you that, okay, you must pay this, otherwise this data will go public. Obviously, you do not want that to be happen with you. Okay, so that's a very popular attack nowadays. Also, we have DNS spoofing, we have Trojan horses, eavesdropping, malware, etc., etc. Now, another important attack in this slide is the man-in-the-middle attack. So, man-in-the-middle attack means, suppose you would like to have a conversation with one of your friends over internet. Maybe you are thinking that you are having that conversation with your friend, but actually someone in the middle pretending that he's your friend, but actually he's not. So he's trying to get information from your side, and he's also doing the same thing at your friend's end. Your friend probably is thinking that, okay, I'm talking to person X, but that person X could be somebody, it could be a hacker. So that's another popular form of collecting information, stealing information in a wrong way. And phishing mails, yes, we do get phishing mails every day. Now, if you'd like to read more about these attacks and a detail of examples and how this can be launched and stuff like that, you can actually visit this link, and it shows very nice description of these attacks. Okay, now you may be thinking that what would be our role as a digital forensic investigator? So you will be called when somebody actually launch any of these attacks on someone's computer. Okay, so your role will start from that point. So you will start collecting evidence at the scene upon your arrival. Now, the cost of cybersecurity or the cybercrime has gone up worldwide. Okay, if you look at the leading 10 economies in the world, how much they are actually spending as a percentage of their GDPs. Okay, and it is actually it is increasing day by day. Okay, the governments are spending a lot of money to stop these type of attacks in the Western Hemisphere. Also, in the east part of the world, nowadays it is very popular to stealing information from the government and selling those information into the black market. Okay, so $445 billion according to the global economic side. Okay. So yeah, that's basically the amount of money spent by the biggest economic countries, developed countries in the world. So what is the process of digital forensics? I do apologize because this slide looks a bit blurry, maybe when I was doing that. Now, let me just tell you where we can start. We will start first with the identification part. Okay, and then we go to the preservation. So what do we actually identify? We identify what was actually left by the hacker after he or she has committed the crime. Okay, so how many devices he actually left, what type of evidence he left for us. So we make a note down of it, and then we try to preserve them. There is a protocol which we have to follow to preserve documents and evidences. I'll come to that later on. Then we collect and we take all those evidence with us to a secure location, a forensic lab, perhaps. Okay. Now, in the forensic labs, we actually run controlled experiments with the evidence. We try to find the cause of the attack. We try to establish the link between the hacker and the evidence. So that is basically our analysis and interpretation. Then we document everything in a professional format. So it's a case document. Okay, you prepare and then you submit that to the law enforcement authorities, or you give that evidence in front of a judge in the court. Now, that is why when the last part of this presentation, the documentation process would be very important, because if it is not documented properly, then you may not be able to establish the link between the hacker and the crime. And as a result, the hacker will get away because of poor investigation conducted. Okay. So we're going to look at the science and some art. So art versus science. It's a very popular philosophy in computer forensics. So science, when I talk about science here, we have some specific scientific methods which we need to follow when we collect, analyze, and prepare the documentation and create an evidence. Okay, so there are protocols, there are numerous ways, scientific ways, okay, to conduct. Now, what is actually art? The art actually depends on the investigator's skill, how nicely he or she can prepare the document, the case document. Okay, all the investigators will follow the same scientific protocols, that's for sure. Okay, but at the end of the day, it actually depends on your own skill, how you can present that document, how you can organize it. Okay, so every investigation is different, making it very difficult to come up with a check sheet of steps applicable to all investigations. Okay, so maybe you have some file systems to lay out in your plan, maybe you have to put some images, maybe you have to put some details of the programs you actually use to collect evidence. So this will depend on investigators' skills. Okay, so that's basically the art and science. Both are involved in computer forensics. It's not only scientific always. Okay, so you do need some arts as well there. Now, another popular term we use in digital forensics is they are actually inculpatory or exculpatory. These are the words actually used in the courtroom to identify whether the crime was inculpatory or whether it is exculpatory. Okay. Now, if you see the first point here, it says that as a forensic analyst, you should not go into an investigation with a predetermined outcome. Now, this is an important part of discussion. When we go to a crime scene, we should not have any biasness in ourselves. Okay, so we cannot actually assume something there. We cannot predetermine an outcome before. Maybe you are thinking, okay, so there's a crime happened there, so this person is related to the crime. Maybe you are right, but you cannot make an assumption initially. Okay, so your evidence and your reporting, your analysis skill will actually tell you whether that person was actually involved or he was not involved. So when I say inculpatory, that means evidence which implies the guilt of a subject. So he was actually linked. So then I will use the word inculpatory. Whereas if the person is innocent, then we will use the word exculpatory. And also the judge will use, when it comes to cyber crime judgment, judges here, they use these two terms to identify the outcomes. Okay. Now it is imperative that you present both sides of the evidence and let the court decide on the evidence. Here is another important part. Very often when we investigate things, we make a judgment or we try to make some kind of conclusion in our report, which, yes, it is important to make as an investigator. But the way you conclude things in your report should not be giving some kind of judgment, because that is not your part. Your part is to investigate the crime and let the court decide based on your evidence and reports. Okay. So here is an example of a crime scene. What you can see here, that somebody probably committed a crime and left the scene with all these things. So when you arrive at the scene, as you can see, the computer is actually turned on, right? Now we will come to a discussion in next few slides that why it is important that the computer should be left turned on and what would happen if that computer is not turned on. Okay. So as you can see here, there's plenty of devices. So when you arrive, you start marking those things and collect all the evidence securely. Obviously, you definitely need help with the law enforcement agencies when you arrive at the scene. Basically, you will get a call from the law enforcement agencies that yes, the crime is, it's a digital crime, it's a cyber crime, so a forensic team should come, just like normal forensic investigations, and they will collect the evidence. Okay. So there are some steps you can actually follow in the crime scene when you arrive. So first, you keep notes of everything you do and learn as an investigator with dates and times recorded, because this will actually help you later on to establish the case. Okay. There will be a complete protocol must be followed when taking notes and structure of your document. Clear the area and get everyone away from the keyboards. Now, keyboards, you may get some fingerprints and all, but that's not your interest, because normal forensic people will collect that evidence, but you can actually see or identify what buttons or what keys were touched by the hacker. So then you can make a pattern out of it if you want. You photograph the area, of course, so that actually helps you to find later on when you conduct your experiment in the lab. Okay. Photograph of the computer monitor and note if the system is running when you arrive, as this determines your next step. Okay. So sometimes when we arrive at the crime scene, very often we see that the computer is not actually turned on, it's off. So even if it is off, what do we do? Okay. If it is on, we can actually conduct some on-site investigation. We can collect the whole, we can capture the RAM if it is turned on, because RAM holds all the information of the computer. Okay. But if it is not on, then as an investigator, your job will become a little bit complicated. Okay. There are steps which you will see. So how can we collect evidence? Okay. So our goal is to interact with the evidence as little as possible. We will not touch anything. We will not tamper anything. Okay. Now in 1980s or 1990s, when people used to go to the crime scene, especially the police officers, what they did actually at that time, they used to unplug the computer from the main line. Well, that was their training. They did the right thing as part of their training. There is nothing wrong in it. But this actually makes the investigation much more harder. Okay. So that was in 1980s and 1990s. But nowadays, if the computer is left turned on, then the law enforcement agencies will never switch it off. They will wait for the investigator to arrive and start the investigation. But in early days, as you can see, yes, and because of this training in 1980s and 1990s, a lot of criminals actually get away with their crime, because the investigator could not complete the investigation properly and they could not link that person with the crime. Okay. So realize that the volatile information was being lost, so change the process to live response on the system before pulling the plug. Now, imaging of the evidence should be conducted in your control lab space. So what if the drive is encrypted? In such scenarios, you simply apply the encryption tool to decrypt the drive and collect the information. Okay. So in this webinar talk, I have shown some encryption process later on. Now, moving evidence to the lab securely. So suppose you have done your primary investigation at the site, and then you decide to take all the evidence for further examination into your lab. So make sure you have taken everything you will need to conduct the examination. Okay, pack everything carefully to prevent any damage. Okay, so some protocol that you can follow to get things set up in your lab securely, and also the chain of custody you need to follow. That's a protocol we use when we collect evidence and when we examine evidence. Okay, so chain of custody will be coming next. Now there can be some limitations, and there will be some limitations without any doubt. So what if you have collected the drive but it is fully encrypted? Okay, so may require to incorporate keys to unlock the drive. Try to obtain any user passwords that you do at your lab. Okay, now when you are dealing with the drives, it may fail as well. So it's a very important part. Suppose you collect a hard drive which was involved in a crime, and when you bring that to your lab, you see that encryption, it is encrypted. There's encryption applied to it. You try to decrypt it a few times, but the hard drive actually failed. This indicates a major problem. So you will have no investigation to conduct any further because the drive is damaged. Okay, so you may need a data recovery lab to overcome this problem. Usually, when I talk about a computer forensic lab, they also have a section or a division where they actually recover data from the device. If it fails or something, if it gets corrupted, if it damaged, there should be a process where it can be recovered. Okay. You may require adapters to connect the target drive to the imaging system. Okay. There are some more limitations. Now, another important limitation would be how you actually collect your evidence. Suppose a crime has taken place somewhere remote area in the country, and due to bad weather, you cannot travel to that location. Okay, so in such scenarios, you have to rely on acquiring all the evidence remotely over the network. Now, network sometimes can be disrupted as well. Okay, that's another limitation. Now, size of the hard drive can become an issue. Okay, and also international borders. Now, international, because different countries have different cyber laws. For example, in Europe, they have one protocol, whereas in North America, they have another one. Now, if you are coming from Europe and try to collect evidence and take back with you to Europe, which law should be followed here, European law or the North American law? So that's a bit of dilemma we have at the moment. It becomes very challenging when the international countries are involved in a crime. Okay. So as I say, that there's a protocol we talk about, it is called chain of custody. So what is a chain of custody? A process used to maintain and document the chronological history of the evidence. The ability to guarantee the identity and integrity of an item from the collection through testimony of the examination results in court. So this is actually the whole process you follow when you start collecting the evidence to make your case report. So these are the questions we have to answer when we follow the chain of custody. On the right-hand side, as you can see, so who seized the evidence? Who seized it? So that should be your details. Item list, what was actually seized, the location, okay, time, and most importantly, why. So these are the 5 W's we have in chain of custodies: who, what, where, when, why. Okay, and your investigation must reflect these 5 W's. So here is an example I provided here. As you can, first let's have a look on the left-hand side, the first example. Now, if you conclude your investigation by just saying this, that I obtained a copy of the USB drive, I hashed the drive, and I confirmed the copy matched with the original. There are plenty of things that somebody can ask, a lot of questions, okay? Yes, you have obtained the USB drive, but you did not mention the type of it. There was no serial number of it. You say that the hash values matched, but you did not provide that hash value here, okay? So, and it does not actually give us any information about when this crime actually was happened, where was it, why was it, a lot. You can clearly see that the 5 Ws are not followed here properly. But on the left-hand side, if you look at, this is a report, an example, of course, it's not a full report. Now, this will give you more relief when you see that, yes, so on February 10, 27, so when was the crime happened? That is enlisted. I obtained an item number 001, which is, what is that item? 8 GB transient USB drive from the person Alex Dillon. The name of the criminal here would be our potential criminal, because we don't know whether he was involved or not. And we process it for the lab. Now, using the MD5 deep technique, which is an encryption technique, okay? So we can generate the hash value. So you mentioned the technique you use to hash the value, and you provided 2 hash values here. All the time, the hash values are same. So even when you conduct your investigation and everything, that's fine. So I compared original MD5 hash with the image value, and both hashes are matched. And yes, you have already shown that in your report, okay? So that's the difference between the art and science. So look at example 2 and how well it was presented compared to example 1. Okay, so we always try to simplify things for other people through our investigation, of course. That is why it is important that you actually follow the 5 Ws strictly when you are conducting an investigation. So that concludes the part 1 of where we talk about the basics of computer forensics, what we need to do to start our investigation and stuff. Now, in the next part, I'm going to talk about the tools and techniques we have for analysis, okay? So 3 types of capturing we do when we collect evidence. Okay, we collect evidence over network if it's not accessible, if the crime scene is not accessible. Okay, we can capture non-volatile disk, and we capture the volatile information. Okay, so first, if we want to capture it over network, a tool what we can use is called NCAT. Okay, so NCAT has the ability to read and write data across the network. So you can connect remotely with the other computer, and using the commands, you can actually collect the evidence. It does support encryption, and we have multiple platforms for that. If you are using a Linux machine or iOS machine or Windows, yes, you can use NCAT very easily. Now, it is a part of an Nmap program. And if you'd like to give a try, then first what you need is you need to download a SIFT workstation. That is a pre-built, pre-configured machine, virtual machine, already available for free. You don't need to pay anything to get that machine. And they have all the tools and techniques already installed in that machine. So you can just configure them as per your requirement in the lab, and you can start doing your investigation straight away. A simple command will install this Nmap on a Linux machine I've given here. So just apt-get install Nmap. Those who are familiar with Linux probably know this command. And yes, if you go to this link, you can actually download the Nmap very straight. And you can also download the workstation from the SIFT site, and you can straight using this nmap process. So here it looks like, so first, if I want to make the connection, suppose I've got two machines here, as you can see. So this is our workstation machine. Okay, it's a forensics Swift workstation, where I would like to connect with this Windows machine somewhere else. Okay, so if I want to connect with this machine, this is probably the culprit machine or the victim machine. It can be any machine, the Windows, and this is our lab machine. So we can actually simply use a command here, okay, NLVPN 444. So it will actually set up the listening port to the other machine. Okay, it will enable that. Now, when you set up the listening port, you can actually type the IP address here and you will get a secure connection between these two machines. So after that, when you establish the connection, you can actually transfer any file between these two machines. So suppose if you cannot arrive at the scene, but you do need to collect the evidence, you can simply use this particular tool to achieve the data from the crime scene. Okay, so there's an example I've given how you can actually create some text file, and then if you want to transfer this file into your Swift workstation, these are the steps. It's clearly given here. So if you just simply run this on a Linux machine, you will be able to actually collect the data. So this is an example here how we can transfer data. And yeah, so for example, see here that we try to transfer the received file from this machine to this one. And when we follow the command here, okay, we can actually receive anything in this receive.txt file. We will receive anything that is in this machine. Okay, so whatever we have here, if it's a text file and we'd like to get all the information in our machine, in our lab, we simply create a text file in the machine we have in our lab and just make a connection and just run the command. So that's how easy it is, and it is fully open source. Okay, you don't need to buy any license. You don't need to worry about any fees or anything for that. So that's how easy it is actually to connect two machines and transfer data from one to another. There is also a way where you can use the SSH, a famous remote connection item in computer science, what we call it. SSH is a secure shell, which is we use to establish cryptographic connection between two systems. Okay, so if you have an image file, suppose in the victim's machine, and you want to take that image file to your machine, the whole image data as a raw format, you can use the secure shell to transfer that file. Okay, so it authenticates each system to the other and allows commands to be sent back and forth. Okay, so run the DCF LDD on the attached USB device and then pipe out the SSH. So that's the command I have shown here, an example. So this is the command you actually learn, you provide in your machine, and that's how it gets collected. So yeah, there are two machines here. So one is the main, and this is the machine where you're collecting your data from. Okay. A Linux machine is being used on both suspect and target. So let's assume this one is our machine in the lab, and this is the target machine where we like to collect data from. So we can see there's a file here already, that the extension of the file is in a raw format. It's a RAM data, RAM dump. So RAM dump, if we have in a raw format, using this command and the correct IP address, we can transfer this into our lab. Okay, again, another example of open source machine. So these are the two very common and popular examples on how we collect data over network. Okay, now what if I have a non-volatile disk capture? Now capturing non-volatile disk is a two-step way. Okay, first you acquire the media, and then you also have to provide some kind of authentication to it. And only after the media is authenticated and acquired correctly, you can start your analysis. That is also open source, and free tools can be used on Windows and Linux both. Now, for this type of capturing, sometimes we start with an encrypted disk protector known as EDD. Okay, encrypted disk protector or detector. We call it detector because since it detects any kind of encryption. So suppose you capture the RAM, or you capture the drive, okay, and you see that you want to check whether there is some kind of encryption attached to it or not. Okay, so using this tool, I have given the link as well where you can download this tool from. So you can download it for free again. So it's a command line tool that checks physical disk on a live Windows system to confirm whether encryption is running on any of the volumes. So even when you capture the data, it will tell you whether the files are encrypted or not. So if you see that, yes, there is some kind of encryption applied to it, then you need to apply some technique to decrypt the data. Now to do that, you can also use TrueCrypt, BitLocker, BestCrypt. There are plenty of open source tools, to check and decrypt. So that's your first tool. You can actually check for encryption. And this is how easy it is. So you just connect to your Windows machine and it tells you whether there's any encryption or not. So as you can see here, it says that no TrueCrypt, PGT, BitLocker, SafeBoot was found. So this actually indicates that the drive is not encrypted at all. So what about in Linux? So that was on a Windows, but when we come to Linux machine, we do the same thing by wiping the drive using this dcfldd command. Okay, so that's the location of your USB here, this one. And you do have to set some rate at what base conversion rate, okay? And then you apply the dcfldd technique to wipe out everything. Now, when you apply the wipeout, you will see that everything has wiped out and the hex dump command will show that everything on that drive was completely wiped. Now, when you wipe everything from a drive, why do you keep it? You keep it in a different location because that you're going to use it for later on, okay? And most widely used tool known as FTK Imager in computer forensic. You can use NCAT, Nmap if you are doing it over the network. You can use some basic Linux command, even if you're trying to capture the non-volatile data. But you can also use FTK Imager. It is a package written in Debian, okay? And you can download this Ubuntu version, 32-bit version or 64-bit version. You can simply unzip this. So basically that's a zip file you are unzipping using the tar command. And when you enable that in your bin folder, you can start simply using this FTK Imager with this command. So FTK Imager is one of the, well, you can also have this version on Windows, okay? You can also have this version on Windows. Now, the basic difference between the version on Windows and Linux is the Linux one, it's more like command line version. Whereas on Windows, you have a nice graphical user interface where you can actually select a lot of features and you can generate your report, okay? So that's how it looks like on Windows. So if you have, so that's on a Windows machine. So first you go to create a disk image, and then if it's on the hard drive, then you simply connect the physical drive, select the drive, okay? And if you have multiple drives, you can also add that. And the output formats can be any of these four. So usually this is the one we actually make when we make this format, when we actually use FTK Imager on a Windows machine, raw data or dump data, we call it, okay? And it will start imaging, even if you want to include the page files of your Windows, because there can be some information in the page file as well. You can do that. Okay, you can provide some case number, evidence number, name of the examiner, and simply where to locate that file. So this will be an image file of the whole system of the target victim's machine or the culprit's machine. We don't know that. So we are just collecting the information. Then we will start our analysis. The another one, it's a forensic suits as well. It is known as the TableU Imager. Okay. Now there's a paid version of this one. You can actually buy, or if you want to use the free one, the free ones are limited to use. There are some features may not be available on this. So again, TableU Imager is a graphical user interface where you connect with your machine, and when you connect this to your machine, it tells you everything about the drive. Okay, so it add notes, it captured the raw image or the encase format, it segment the image if you want. Okay, and also provides the hashing. So if you are not somebody who is comfortable with Linux machine, you still have the option to use Windows tools. Okay, but all the renowned forensic experts, computer forensics lab, they have built their own Unix environment. Okay, because according to them, the Linux is much more suitable, and it is actually it provides much more security when it comes to preserving the data. Because just imagine that you are using this device in your lab and some hacker actually hacks your lab because you are using Windows machine, because Windows are very vulnerable towards attacks. Although the newer operating systems, they have actually tried to minimize the exploits and everything, but still compared to Linux, as of now, Windows are vulnerable. Okay. So yeah, so that's how, suppose if you want to accurate this part only, the USB drive, you just right click on this and just click accurate device, and it will start accurating the data from the USB. Okay, then you can provide the serial number and everything where you want this file. You can also have your name in it. You can select what type of encryption you would like to apply on the data. Okay, and finally it gives you a log file where when was it created, how was it created, what was the serial number, everything is actually provided. So basically the 5 Ws of chain of custody is actually taking place here. Okay, so this is what we would like to get at the end. Okay. Now, that was non-volatile memory. So let's talk about the volatile memory, RAM. So you arrive at the scene and you see that the computer is running. That means you can capture the data straight away. You don't have to worry about much. So RAM is the best and sometimes only place to collect evidence or any bypass with the encryption. Of course, it's a volatile memory, meaning it does not store data in the long term. So basically, if you see that the system is not connected or it is not live, then that means the RAM is empty. Because whenever you actually plug off or switch off your computer, you take the plug out, everything in the RAM just got deleted. So you don't have nothing on the RAM. Okay, once the computer shuts down, RAM is flushed from the system. That's right. So RAM must be collected on a live running system. The system should be running when you are collecting the evidence. Okay, so suppose here is an example, a scenario, what can happen if the system is not live. So a live computer system is seized by the police. The officer pulls the power from the back of the system as she has been trained. So suppose that was her training. So when she arrived at the scene, she just unplugged it. The system is sent to the analyst for forensics, and they actually captured the evidence. Well, not capture all the computers, plugs, everything, and just assume they sent this to you in your lab. Now, you can see the system is not live. So how can you actually image the RAM? There is no way. So after the system is imaged, the analyst confirms that the entire drive is encrypted with TrueCrypt. The analysis is actually over at that time. There is no further analysis can be done here. So this is how important it is for the law enforcement agencies to learn that do not switch off the device when you arrive at the crime scene. Okay, if RAM was collected in this scenario, the encryption keys could have been obtained from the RAM to break the encryption. Okay, so that's how important it is when you capture information from the live system. Okay, so usually we use a tool on Windows platform to collect the data. We can simply install that tool in our USB stick, and we can plug the USB stick and try to capture the RAM onto a USB stick. Now, when I'm saying this, your USB size of your USB stick must be larger than the size of the actual RAM. Suppose the computer you try to capture, the RAM you try to capture of the computer is 16 gigabyte, and the program you have on your USB is, the size of your USB is 8 gigabytes. So you cannot actually capture a 16 gigabyte RAM on an 8 gigabyte USB. Okay, so that's why always use a large size of a USB. Here's an example of RAM collection. The tool we use here, it's called Dump It. Again, a free tool for Windows simply. So connect with the USB and then simply run the tool from the command line. And when you run the tool, it will start capturing everything on the RAM. Okay, so at the end, it will tell you what it has captured, okay, where it has been captured, and the size of the file. And there is any, look at this one here, there is a secure hash algorithm 256 version was applied to this acquisition. So that's a 256 encryption was applied actually on this RAM. Okay, there it is. So that's how easy it is. It's again an open source tool to download. You don't need to pay anything. Now, what if you want to capture the RAM of a Linux system? Suppose you arrive at the scene and you see that the hacker was using Ubuntu, and he did not have any Windows on the machine. There are two ways you can do it. You can use a tool called Lime, Linux memory extractor. Okay, it was created by Joe Silva, a famous computer scientist. In his lab, he created this tool. It's a command line tool, so you have to write command and compile all those commands. Configure. You obviously need some configuration to that system, and this makes it difficult when you don't know the system you will encounter. So you also need some kind of background knowledge on Linux system. The next one we have on the left, on the right, is Linux memory grabber. That's actually most that is being used widely when it comes to Linux RAM memory acquisition. So LMG we call it. So LMG is also a command line tool. There is no interface available for this. So this script is created on a USB drive. So again, you can actually create your script in an USB folder where you can run this. Connect the USB to any machine and simply just run your script. That will capture everything from that machine to your USB. Okay. So an example is given in the next slide. So that's how it looks like. I know it looks like a bit messy here. So some part is highlighted, as you can see. So first you start your LMG using the command. Okay, so that's your, so that's your media directory where your USB is connected. So you go to that directory and you simply start your LMG. Okay, now once you start your LMG, it will start capturing everything. So the serial number of the workstation, the date, time, and everything. Okay, so whatever you have in the actual computer will be transferred to your USB. Okay, and you can also compile the profile. So if you do that, you can have the volatility tools, which is an external tool, which will actually tells you a lot about the data. Okay, this is an example. I know for that, yes, you need some kind of understanding of Unix, the commands and everything. But the good thing is, since it is open source, there are a whole bunch of commands available online. So even if you are new in Linux, you do not need to memorize all this. You can actually go for the documentation part of Linux, and you can see how it is done. And there are plenty of commands available as documentation. Okay. So what if we'd like to capture some dynamic memory? Okay. So memory can be analyzed live, and it does not always have to be captured and analyzed after the fact. Okay. So here is a tool where you can download. It's called FireEye. Okay. And if you can install this tool, this is how it looks like. Okay. So again, this is actually not free. So you can get a free version, but you will be limited. Your tasks will be limited. But if you decide to go for a full version, they have plenty of features. Some of the forensics lab nowadays, they actually purchase this red line from the company, and they actually provide their configuration details and everything what they need, and the company actually prepares the software for them. Okay. So you can simply start using a collector, which is this one. So you can start collecting data. If you like, you can edit your script here in the next screen and enable all types of features you want in your script. So you don't need to actually worry about writing commands and everything. It will generate the script for you. So that's why it's very convenient. And this is, suppose you want to capture. So suppose this is the data. And when you start creating the batch file or run the batch file, it starts collecting it like this. So once your collection is done, you can also check in your Windows that what you have collected. Okay. So yeah, that's on the Windows machine, but the example I'm showing, I was using on Windows 7. That's a pretty old machine though, but yes, you can use any Windows version. Okay. Now, sometimes what happens is when you try to use these tools, the new Windows operating system like Windows 10, Windows 11, these operating systems consider these tools as viruses. So it is sometimes wise that you should actually switch off the virus program in your computer, or you can actually allow this exception to the firewall so that you'd be able to run those scripts. Otherwise, if you have this batch file script and on a Windows 10 machine or an 11 machine, and the antivirus and firewall both are on, there is a 95% chance that whenever you try to run this script, it will get deleted automatically by the antivirus. Okay. So some screenshots here I provided how you can actually collect data, how you can use this red line for your analysis. Yes, you can name everything, select the location and all. And finally, this is how it will be stored in your machine. Okay. And yes, there is a part where you can also generate report of it, but I think that is for the paid version, not for the free version. Okay. There are some forensic tools we also use when we in the network forensics. Okay. So TCP dump, Wireshark is a very famous one. Okay. And SPLUNK, some of I have mentioned that which are free and which are not. For example, SPLUNK is a complete package. Okay. So if you pay, yes, you can get a better IDE and everything to analyze your data. Okay. We also have Bro, it is getting very popular. Snort is an algorithm. Okay, it's a package in Ubuntu. You can actually run on Ubuntu to detect any intrusion of the system. Okay, and finally we have the network miner, the most popular one. But if you are going for this network miner, the last one, I suggest you actually go for the paid version, because free versions of these paid softwares will not give you much flexibility to work. You either completely rely on fully open sourced or you go for fully paid version. Okay. So, oh yeah. So these actually we call it like Security Information and Event Management System, SEIM. These software products and services combine security information management and security event management. So two things are actually combined into one, and that's how these companies are providing the softwares. Okay. They provide, of course, real-time analysis of security alerts generated by network hardwares and other applications. So suppose if you have routers and switches in your company and you'd like to get protected, so you can actually buy a SIEM software where you will have the information and you will have the event management as well. This is actually helpful for the bigger companies. Okay. Otherwise, you can go for the network miner. It's a forensic tool as well. Okay, so there's some explanation of network miners here. So you're better off paying the paid, getting the paid version, not the free one. And this is how it looks like. Have a look here. So we try to actually connect with the host, and it tells you all the session was sent and received during the capture. Okay. Another popular one is Wireshark. I'm sure a lot of you probably have heard about the name Wireshark, and some of you have maybe already used it. There's not much to say about Wireshark because it's a packet capturing and protocol analyzer. So it captures the packets in real time if you keep it on a running system. So whatever packets you're receiving or you're trying to send over the network will be captured by this software. Okay. So yeah, you can read a lot about Wireshark tools on this wiki link I provided, and interface looks like this. Okay, so it can have all the different protocols are captured, so from IP address to everything. And the Sleuth Kit or Autopsy for Forensic Suite. That's a complete suite you can get, Autopsy, where you can actually do a lot of things. You can run on a Swift version or you can run on a Windows version for capturing and analyzing these data. So these are actually more like a compact package you get. Okay, it's a graphic user interface, but of course, if you're running on the Swift, well, it says that the version 2 is no longer supported by Swift machine, Science Institute of Forensic Technology. Now you can download that V3 and try it on Swift if you're too much keen to work on a Unix machine. Otherwise, you can simply just run on a Windows machine. So these are the kind of things you can do with Autopsy. You can actually generate the full forensic report after you come up with your investigation, and it will so these top one and the bottom one here. So these are the process where you are investigating the data. And once you are done, you can simply go to the reporting part and ask for generate the report, and it will be generated. Okay. So with that, we finish our second part of this webinar. Now we only have left with the reporting part. And for reporting, again, I think I mentioned this one at the beginning, that if it is not documented, it did not happen. It's an old saying. Okay, it's an old English proverb we have, that if it's not documented, it did not happen. Okay, so that is why we need documentation. So why we need reporting? We need reporting to record keeping the work activity. One important part of reporting is basically if our report is not strong enough, then we cannot bring the culprit to the justice. So that is why reporting is an important part in computer forensic. You may be thinking that, no, I'm an investigator, so I investigate technical items and leave this reporting for other people who can do it for me. Well, the other guy does not know how you conduct your investigation. Okay, so that is why as an investigator, it is your task that you should prepare your report. So I'm not going to read out from the slide here, as you can actually read the slides, and I will make these slides available. I'll send it to the moderator, of course, so you can have a read. So some guidelines I have drafted here, how you can actually prepare your report. And when you also have, this is an important part, let's focus on this one for a few minutes. Now, when you are writing your report, you must consider who is your audience. Yes, you are a technically sound person, no doubt about it. But when you are writing the report, basically that report will be presented to the judge in the court. Now, the judge is not technical. So please be careful when you prepare your report. You have to explain things in very common terms. Your report should not be too technical. Okay. So that's technical versus non-technical part. And also you have to worry about executive versus information technology group. Okay, internal, external, etc. So the example here, if using acronyms, spell out completely the first time with acronyms. So suppose if you just write in your report CSIRT and submit that to somebody who does not know what is the meaning of CSIRT and what kind of job they do. So obviously it will be a bit embarrassing for that person and he cannot actually establish anything out of it. So that is why it is better you provide the full acronym before even use any abbreviations in your report. And yes, finally, keep it simple. Okay. Use, of course, peer reviews. So when you write report, you should let your other team members to read and consider their feedback. Okay. And of course, don't rush with your reports. Take time and implement each step carefully, because when you're rushing things, obviously you may lose or you may forget to include something important, and that probably will give a chance to the culprit to get away with the crime. Okay. There are ideally there are two formats we follow here: document format or HTML format. So please have a look at those two formats. And this is a format I have given an example here. So your report should always start with any title page where you clearly mention the basic information of the reports. Then it should have a table of contents, must have a summary, and then you start putting the information objectives. It's like writing any other report in any other domain. So even when you are a student, probably you have written your thesis and you follow some kind of structure. So in forensics, we also do the same thing. Okay. And some tools you can use. So Case Note, the link is already given here. So you can actually go to the link and download this software. Mind mapping tools, if you want some mind mapping ideas, if you want to put all your ideas in the map, yes, you can generate that. Microsoft Word is there. You can also use Encase for writing. Okay, there's another exe file called Case Note. It actually gives you an advanced encryption standard of 512 bits to it whenever you create your report. So even if it is get hacked or something, it will be very difficult to break that encryption, AES512. Okay. And with that, I would like to conclude my talk today. Thank you very much for allowing me to present this talk in front of you. Now, if you have got any questions, very briefly, I would like to take those questions now, because I think we have already gone over the time. So yeah, very briefly, one or two, three, few questions I will take now. Thank you. Over to the moderator.
Please unmute and make a question to the keynote speaker.
Thank you very much. First of all, I am introducing myself. I am Sujoy, assistant programmer from Belabu, Norsindi. Thank you very much for your resourceful session. And just like in law enforcement agency, we have learned how to how to start an investigation. And I have basically, are there any available certification in cybersecurity we can achieve and we can get better result from it? And then my second question is, there are a lot of laws in different countries around the world.
Could you please repeat your question
cybersecurity.
again, because you are
And
actually
are there
breaking
any
out. I
uniform
can't hear you.
law
I really
enforcement
can't hear
authority
you.
in case of cybersecurity?
I heard a
Yes,
little bit of your question.
are-
So I think the second part of the question you were breaking out. I could not hear the second part of your question. Can you please repeat that?
Yeah, I am repeating because of network failure. I think it's happening. My first question is: are there any cybersecurity certification we can achieve?
So let me tell you this about the cybersecurity certifications. Yes, as long as you'd like to get certified professionally, there is a program called CIISP. Okay, so that is a professional certificate. So you need to enroll for the course. It's like if you are familiar with Cisco certificate, Cisco networking certificate, which is known as CCNA, CCNP. So those are for networking, right? Now, if you'd like to get certified for cybersecurity, I think it is called CIISP. Okay, CIISP, that's a program you need to be enrolled in, and then there will be a vendor exam which you need to pass, and after that you should be able to call yourself as a professional or certified cybersecurity analyst.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum. This is Abdullah Mutin from Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Professional Supervisor. Okay, yeah, it was a great session. Actually, it gives a guideline through the basics and forensics tools. I have worked a very basic with security testing. Like I worked in the fintech sector, so it's logging and encryption and packet sniffing. These kinds of tasks I have already done, and even reverse engineering and OWSP standards. Okay, it's a great pleasure. But one thing I just need to know that in security standard or security world, what the company or the industry follows the guidelines or any other procedure, so that the testing procedures can or forensic procedure may miss or I can say or discard any process. So is there any guidelines so that we can follow, or we can take it as a strong point so that we can follow that? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yes, there are guidelines which we also have to follow when we actually go on an investigation and we start our investigation. Now, NIST, National Institute of Standard Technology, NIST, if you just search with that, you will see there is NIST guideline, which is actually followed in North America. Okay, so that's our guideline. And we also have some ISO guidelines for testing and investigations, especially when preparing the reports. Yes, we have to follow the NIST and ISO guidelines.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask you more question?
Yeah, sure.
As a security expert, the sector is huge. So is there any career guidelines so that we can focus on that? So lots of items here is here, and security crimes are depending on every scene is different. So what we can focus on that? Is there any highlighted crimes or highlighted cases so that we can focus on that, or basic topics so that we can use that on frequently or most of the cases?
Yeah. So what I can understand from your question is that you're probably asking me the nature of crimes. Yes, the nature of crimes are different when it comes to computer cyber crimes. They are different, but Having said that, even the crimes are different. You start your investigation from, let's say, point A, okay? And that point A can be fixed for any nature of the crime you get in the scene. And the career guideline, I would like, on my suggestion to any of you, if you would like to develop a career on this particular field, please get certified. Because you may have your experience and your expertise from other domain, but it does not actually limit your ability to become a certified professional analyst. So if you really want to certify yourself, or if you really would like to work in this industry, then my advice to all of you would be, please get certified. CIISP program, get that program done, and that could be a starting point. Or even if it is too hard for you, because that's a quite heavy program, okay? So you have to focus on a lot of things. There will be a strict exam. These are vendor exams. You can actually undertake some free courses as well. There are plenty of online learning site like, I'm not sure whether you have heard about Coursera. They provide the Coursera. You can take courses on. You can actually look for Edureka, of course. Yes, they do courses. They actually run courses. So that can be your starting point. So if you do 1 or 2 courses on these platforms and get yourself confident, then you enroll for the CIISP program. Okay, that could be your starting, and then that's how you can actually shape your career into this field.
Thank you.
Okay, programmer sir, GICT Raspberry. Okay, sir.
Assalamu alaikum. I am Mohammad Junaidin Fedor, a programmer Raspberry. I don't know whether it's a bit silly question or not. I would like to know, as per Bangladesh point of view, do you have any practical experience regarding digital forensic in Bangladesh, which you can share with us briefly?
Well, I actually moved to Bangladesh in 2017 from England after living there for 9 years or so. But when I moved to Bangladesh, I started working in the academia. So I really didn't get the chance to work with the industry. But yes, in 2020, I actually met someone from the police. He was a quite higher authority in the police in the DMP headquarters. So we had a session there, a day-long session, where he briefly mentioned the kind of problem they get in Bangladesh. So I attended that session and I exchanged my knowledge with the police. And what I realized that it's more like threatening calls, putting wrong posts on social media. Now that's a challenge actually, how you detect fake news, because that's what they were worrying at that stage. So very briefly, I attended that session. So that was a day-long session. But apart from that, no, to be honest, I did not get the chance to involve in any practical forensic crime in Bangladesh, no.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mofazzal Hussain, please.
I'm Mofazzal Hussain Sohail, Assistant Network Engineer, Khatun. So I have a question that in this session we learned about the tools Autopsy and heard about Volatility. So actually, which tools is used to identify malware? Can we identify malware or some attack from Autopsy, or Volatility used to find malware, identify malware?
So yeah, so your question actually regards to which tool you can start. So yes, Volatility you can start with, that will identify the malware, and then it depends on your comfort zone. So if you are comfortable in Linux, you can actually start using with Lime or LMG. On the other hand, if you are familiar with Windows operating system a lot and you do not want command line interface, you don't like it, that's fine. You can simply download Autopsy and you can start your investigation. Or even Redline would do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any question, please? Okay, I think no more question. Now I would like to request for thanking speech. Mahfuja Khatun, Assistant Programmer, Department of ICT Division, and member of ICT Research Lab. Please, over to you.
Thank you, Biplab. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Actually, now I'm here and I would like to express my gratitude thanks to our honorable speaker for conducting such session that is on digital forensics on behalf of myself and from my team ICT Research Lab. Actually, we had a great interest on digital forensic process since it's a widely used research area of cybersecurity research domain. And we learned briefly about many topics here, and that is the differences between cybersecurity and digital forensics, as well as inculpatory versus exculpatory. And also, our speaker explained us briefly that what should we do when someone commits a crime. What previous people did for collecting records or evidence. Here we have also learned how to install Nmap and connecting and transferring data using these tools. And we also gain knowledge about capturing non-volatile memory, that is forensic suites, and also capturing volatile memory, network forensic tools like Wireshark and some other tools, and as well as network miner reporting and so on. Actually, we have learned a lot from this session, and I truly appreciate to our speaker and his time for taking this resource-oriented lecture. And we enjoyed every minute of your lecture as well as your marvelous sense of humor. We hope that in near future we might get the opportunity to attend such session, which will be conducted by you, the speaker. Now it's time to give certificate to our honorable speaker, Professor Dr. N.D. Mahbub Mishu, sir. So we will be really happy if you please accept this on behalf of ICT Research Lab.
Thank you. Thank you very much for such a nice thanking note at the end, and I really appreciate the certificate. Thank you very much.
And I'd like to give my gratitude thanks to our honorable sir from different departments and also from our ICT department, as well as to my colleagues. Thank you all. Thank you so much for conducting such session and those who worked behind this session. Thank you all.
Thank you. And I would very much grateful to Dr. Mahbub Mishu bhai. I contact with him to deliver his some research experience share with us. So we are very much benefited, and again, thank you. And we hope next we will get you in time. We know that you have the busy time schedule, and you have given us your time. Thank you so much.